Right. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to introduce us to dashes and parentheses. And on the point of dashes, there are two types. There are N dashes and M dashes. And really, the ones that we're going to be looking at, because it actually affects sentence creation as more significant, meaningful punctuation marks, are M dashes. And N dashes basically can show ranges or series. So if I say like 1985 1987, like that's an example of it, but you know, that's not really the ones that we're looking at. We're looking at M dashes, and we're going to talk about those first. Alright, so here's an example of a sentence that utilizes M dashes, and the key thing is that typically when you use an M dash compared to your other options, which can be a comma or parentheses, you're inserting parenthetical thought. And parenthetical thought could just be defined as additional thought. So something in addition to what you've said already. And a key element is that if you can take out this and have a complete sentence left over, you've at least punctuated it correctly. The content of what's in between your M dashes is very broad. You have a lot of freedom, and they can be located in different places. In this one, I've showed it in the middle of your sentence, but it can also set off something at the end of your end of your sentence. So let me show you what that looks like. Now, this is an example of seeing an M dash at the end of a sentence. So I think that one thing you might see is basically the way that I've written it, this content is an afterthought and may even be something that I think about after I say it. So you could rewrite this sentence and say, if you don't have any other plans, we could go golfing. But let's say we're having a conversation, or you're writing your idea in such a way that what you think of kind of comes later, or literally after you've said it or written it. You could say something like, we could go golfing, but let's say you want to qualify it and basically emphasize the fact that you don't want to push them around and act like it's the only thing. You could say, if you don't have any other plan, if you don't have other plans. So it basically changes the meaning slightly. And again, the same thing applies. You have a complete sentence without this content, which is why I underlined it. But the same thing can apply to parentheses, but basically you're able to, I think, witness the pattern here in some of these examples. So you could do these same sentences. Like, I'm going to go back to the first example and recreate something similar and show you parentheses and just re-emphasize how, as I've seen it described in other places, we have parentheses, and if something's parenthetically set off, you could say something is a whisper, and if something has a dash, you could say that it's shouting. Also, in the other sense, I like the idea of an M dash having a spotlight put on it, and so you're like drawing a whole lot of attention to it. Okay, let me show you one example with parentheses, and then we'll wrap it up. Alright, so here's an example where I've used parentheses, and the sentence reads, after tomorrow's meeting, we can get ice cream. Okay, now I was thinking as I was making this where I would put the comma. What I don't think I would do is I don't think I'd put the comma there. Okay, particularly because it would make it seem like the parenthetical thought is a part of my independent clause. So we wouldn't want to say that. Okay, but what we can do, back up. Oh, okay, so it's not going to let me. But what we can do is erase that. Okay, and we can, I think, put it after that, and then you're showing that the parenthetical thought applies to your I'm sorry, prepositional? I don't know why I'm blanking so much. But after your prepositional phrase that opens your sentence. Definitely use adverb. Anyway, sorry, I'm just sitting here thinking. And so you would want to put your comma there as you normally would punctuate it, and that way you could remove any of this content here between your parentheses. So one more time, let me reiterate the differences between parentheses and M dashes and commas. Alright, so to reiterate, if you have a comma, that's pretty much just, we'll just say expected. you can use that in a very versatile way, and you can use it to set off parenthetical-like thoughts. It's not as, I don't know, your reader might not notice it as much. It's kind of expected. This, as I was describing earlier, it's not as emphasized. It's kind of whispered. One thing that I like to think of it as non-essential. Okay? Whereas our final one here, the M dash, it's the spotlight. You put a spotlight on it and you draw a lot of attention to it. And we'll expand some of our uses. It can be used in dialogue, it can be used to cut off thoughts, or it can be used just to interrupt thoughts like we've been looking at. So let's practice this a little bit. Parentheses, M dashes, kind of talk about which one we'd use. It is definitely a style choice. Either of these things can be used in very similar ways on this point of interrupting thought and adding parenthetical thought. You guys have a nice one, all right? Thank you.